Hello, here we are in Victoria, BC. I'm Phil Rosner and I'd like to welcome you to the Vancouver Island Business and Lifestyle Show, where we'll be featuring businesses up and down Vancouver Island. Are you ready? Let's go. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, that is music.
And welcome to my office, my home away from home.
I know, it's pretty amazing. My friend who is sitting right here, Don Peterson, who does music for a living. What do you consider to be your best seller?
His guitars. But, we joke around here, like, where are all these guitars going? We really don't know. But,
right. U.S. market is really good, whereas up here in Canada, there's kind of a meh kind of attitude. So when did you first pick up guitar? How old were you? In this episode, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, that is music. And we're going to start out this episode by talking to Wayne Forseth, who is the BC Regional Manager for Long & McQuade Music. Hi, Wayne.
Hi, Phil. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Wayne.
And welcome to my office, my home away from home.
I know, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So, Wayne, could we start off by kind of talking a bit about the history of Long & McQuade?
Sure.
When did it first open its doors actually in BC? Do you recall?
Well, in BC, I don't really recall. It would have been some probably late 60s, I would think.
Okay.
The first one was in Vancouver.
Yeah.
In BC, that is. The company started, Jack Long and Jack McQuade, the founders, they opened the first store in Toronto in 1956.
Right.
So it's been going for a long time. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And how long have you been with the company?
I'm in my 40th year, believe it or not.
Wow.
So yeah,
Okay.
been a pretty good run.
Yeah. What, is there something particular that made you decide on this particular kind of career?
Well, I didn't really decide on it. That's kind of funny because I fell into the job.
Okay.
I grew up in East Vancouver, born and raised, and proud of it.
Right.
And so I had a very blue-collar upbringing, and for a number of years, 7 years plus, I worked in a sheet metal shop.
Okay.
But I found I really didn't like it that much,
Mhm.
and in the meantime, I was always playing music.
Right.
I was in a lot of bands. One in particular was called Crackers. Late 60s, early 70s. I had the long hair, and the band already had two guitar players. I'm a guitar player, so
Okay.
they didn't need a guitar player, but they needed a vocalist. So they asked me to join, and I joined, and that ran for about 3 or 4 years.
Right.
After that, I was in a band called Backstreet, where again they had two guitar players, didn't need a guitar player, so they asked me to come on board and play bass. So
Mhm.
I played in that band Backstreet for 2 to 3 years. But I was in and out of Long & McQuade a lot as a
Mhm.
customer,
Mhm.
and I had a friend that worked there. Anyways, long story short, him and his wife were over at my place, and I had just quit the job at the sheet metal shop, and I said to Brian Lowe's his name, I
Mhm.
said, "Hey Brian, believe it or not, I just quit my job." And he goes, "What are you going to do now?" And I really had no idea. So he said, "Well, why don't you come and work at Long & McQuade?"
Right.
And I kind of laughed it off because I never thought of myself as a salesperson. As I say, a sheet metal worker and stuff. But the next day I did think, I knew the guys, I'd been in and out for years as a customer.
Yeah.
So I went down, talked to the manager, and said, "Hey Pat Coffey was his name." I said, "Hey Pat, I just quit my job, looking for some work. Is there any work here at Long & McQuade?" And he just said, "Well, the only thing I have, the shipper just happened to give his notice, he's leaving in 3 weeks. It's minimum wage, which was $3.50 in 1980 when I started. He said it's minimum wage, it's behind the scenes, it's heavy work, no glory.
Right.
But if you want that,
Yeah.
You can start in 3 weeks. So I thought,
Yeah.
well, okay. So I took the job thinking I'll take the job until I find another job.
Right.
And, here I am 40 years later. So really, I didn't go seeking the job.
Right.
I really fell into it.
Yeah.
But I feel blessed because I love what I do.
Mhm.
And it's just a great job. Just
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate because not too many people can say they love their job,
Yeah.
and especially after 40 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Long McQuade is particularly Canadian.
It's Canadian owned.
based?
Yep, yeah. It's still family owned. Jack McQuade passed away a number of years ago. I never
Mhm.
did meet him,
Right.
but he'd already sold his shares to Jack Long.
Okay.
So the Long family still own Long McQuade. It's a family-run business.
Right.
When I transferred from the Vancouver store, I eventually went from shipper onto the sales floor, became the assistant manager, and then in 1984 they offered me to come to Victoria to manage the Victoria store,
Mhm.
which I love Victoria, so I jumped at it
Yeah.
basically and came over. And that it already had been running for about a year and a half, but the first manager didn't particularly like it. He wanted to move back. He was from Toronto,
Mhm.
so he moved back and opened up the job for me to come over. But that was 1984, and I believe it was the 6th or 7th store
Mhm.
in the chain at that time. But today we have 85 stores. It's up to 85.
Wow.
So we're virtually all across Canada, none in the States, just in Canada, and we're pretty much every major city.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, I notice you have a huge variety of different types of instruments.
Yeah.
What do you consider to be your best seller?
Well, we are a full line store for sure. We carry everything, accordions, pianos, violins, whatever.
Yeah.
But the biggest seller, without a doubt, month after month after month, is guitars. You know, it's
No.
Yeah, believe it or not. Who would have guessed?
Yeah, no kidding.
But we joke around here like, where are all these guitars going? We really don't know, but
Right. Amazing.
it's huge,
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, well, I can understand that.
Yeah, we find recently acoustic sales have really gone up in the last 2 or 3 years.
Uh-huh.
It used to be mostly electrics and a few acoustics, but it's definitely getting almost equal now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously, Long McQuade also hosts a lot of workshops.
We do.
Are there any of those over the years that have really been standouts for you?
Yeah, we've had so many, but two in particular come to mind. Jim Valance, who is Bryan Adams' co-writer, wrote
right.
most of the hits through the years. He came over one time. I knew him in Vancouver when I worked in Vancouver, so one day I asked him, hey, Jim, is there any chance you'd come to Victoria and do a songwriting workshop? And he jumped at it. He loves Victoria as well.
Mm.
So he came over, spent a few days here and did a workshop. It was amazing. He had tapes of him being in the studio with Ozzy and Steve Tyler, and not to mention Bryan Adams.
Yeah.
Very fascinating
Yeah.
workshop.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
Right.
Another favorite was Alan White from the band Yes.
Huh?
He was living in Seattle, and we connected with him, and he said, if I'm in the area, I'd love to do it. And one day he was in the area, so we did it. And he's also the drummer on, he joined the Plastic Ono band, John Lennon's band,
Oh, wow.
in 1969, so he's on the early records of Plastic Ono band, and also on the Imagine album, John Lennon's solo album, and Instant Karma, that's Alan White on the
Oh, okay.
drums.
Right.
But a fascinating guy. He had great stories and very, very inspirational.
Right.
Those two come to mind, but
Yeah.
there are very many.
I noticed on your wall here you've got a ton of photographs of all kinds of different musical celebrities. Have you met all these guys? Or?
I have. Being in the music business this long, you just kind of run into them at trade shows or the workshops that we do and different places. A few of the people that come to mind that I really enjoyed meeting was Eric Burden of the Animals. Gary Van Buskert, who was one of the owners of Harpo's Club when it was opened in Victoria. He was a customer in the store, and he knew I was a big fan, so he happened to bring him to town to play Harpo's. And then after the show, Gary saw me in the audience, came out, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey Wayne, follow me, I've got somebody I'd like to introduce you to." So he walked me back to the band room, introduced me to Eric Burden, which was a huge thing to me. This was 1991. And so I hung out with Eric for about an hour. We were chatting in the band room. That was huge. Geddy Lee I met recently when he was in town doing book signing.
That must have been a rush.
That was a rush, yeah. John Kay from Steppenwolf was a treat to meet him. And Ravine, one time I was visiting the Kamloops store, and he just walked in the store, and he was doing a show the next night in Kamloops.
Did he try and hypnotise you?
No, he didn't. No, not that I know of anyways. So that was a treat meeting him, because I'm a huge fan of him. And another dear friend who's unfortunately passed away now about 5 years ago, I believe you know him as well, or knew him, Paul Horn.
Yeah.
That was a treat to meet him.
Right.
Again, I met him originally when I worked in the Vancouver store, and one day he was in, and I said, "Hey," I knew he lived in Victoria, and I said, "Hey Paul, guess what, I'm transferring to Victoria, I'm going to manage your store." He went, "Great, here's my home number, when you get to town give me a call." So gave him a call, we had lunch, and over the years had several dinners and lunches and meetings.
Yeah, he was a great guy. I met him in the early 70s, and he was a very sweet man, and he even gave us some of his time at Cambay Studios, which later became Mushroom Studios in Vancouver, to do a demo. Wow. Yeah, he was a really great guy.
Yeah, he was a charming guy, very down to earth, and very approachable. And not to mention, I mean, he has dozens and dozens of albums out. So amazing guy. Yeah. And then in the early days, he was also a session player in LA. He told me some stories about those days when we were chatting. So yeah, interesting guy. Miss him dearly.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
So to finish up, Wayne, is there, from a personal perspective, what gives you the most satisfaction in your job?
Well, I would say it's meeting the people, you know, the customer, and they're 99% are musicians.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a few people we deal with that aren't, hotel owners, things like that. But mostly it's musicians. I love talking about music. And so I get most satisfaction out of talking to musicians and selling them stuff and seeing them leave with a big smile on their face and know I'm contributing to the music scene, mostly here in Victoria, but it spreads out even further. But yeah, so the satisfaction would be talking to the customer base and getting musical instruments out there in the world.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Wayne.
You
really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Phil. It's a pleasure being on your show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, that's the first part of our episode on music. Next, we're going to be talking with somebody who actually made music a career choice and who is doing music and aspects of music, teaching and that sort of thing, which will be Don Peterson, who will be up next. Thank you so much for watching. Hi, welcome back. We're talking music today, and it's pretty rare to find somebody who actually makes a living doing music. Except for my friend who is sitting right here, Don Peterson, who does music for a living. How you doing, Don?
Good.
Good. So, Don, let's go back a bit. For me and music, it was the Beatles that really got me interested in playing guitar. Was there a similar situation for you?
I saw the Ed Sullivan Beatles performance when I was a little guy, and it was later on when I, about the late '60s, early '70s, and the Beatles and the Stones and Jimi Hendrix and Jeff Beck and all of the biggies.
Yeah.
They got me interested in it.
So you loved those guitars as much as I did.
No, I liked the music a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you first pick up guitar? How old were you?
It's hard to say, really. The first time I did it, I went for lessons with my brother, and I was really young. I was 10 or something, and I didn't show a lot of promise. Yet my brother did.
Right.
But what happened was he got tired of it after a while, and a number of years later I found the guitar in the basement and started bashing away at it. And a buddy of mine down the street, a school friend, was already taking lessons, and I just sort of kind of copied what he was doing,
Okay.
and away we went.
Okay. So you got in, did you, like after you were playing for a while, you obviously got involved with some other folks and got involved in a band? Or?
Yeah, back in the '70s and that, we didn't have computers and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
We had sports or music,
Right.
and we had to do one of them. And I went for music,
Exactly.
and my mom let the kids bash around in the basement with drums and whatever, and that's kind of how it all got started.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you've made a career in music. Are there any really, for you, kind of defining moments along the way that really got you going with?
Or
with
determined to do it.
Yeah.
To do music.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I was living in Vancouver and playing in a band, and a couple of times a month my mom would phone me and do what moms do, which is you got to find something to fall back on and all of this. And I agreed with her at one point, and I said, okay, I'll come back to Vic, and I'll learn how to do something. It was really, I wasn't really interested in doing that, but I was just trying to appease my mom. And so I learned how to do, I learned a little trade and went off and tried to do that and realized I hated it.
Right.
And said I'll figure out a way to do it with music. And the teaching was key to the whole way to make a proper living.
Right.
Without the teaching, I don't know if it would have been real difficult.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you find that? Do you find it enjoyable?
For the most part, it's it is a job.
Yeah.
But it's pretty satisfying in many ways. So for the amount of time you've been playing, at this point, do you have like a favorite gig? I have some favorite gigs.
Okay. You want to tell us about
Well, I
it?
play in a country band, and it's traditional with steel guitar, and that's a lot of fun to be a guitar player in a country band. If you're going to be in a country band, be the singer or be the guitar player.
Right.
And I have a duo that's fun for different reasons, and a party band, rock band, that's fun for, again, different reasons. They're all kind of fun,
Right.
but not every gig is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I know about that.
I try, don't we all? And I try to keep those to a minimum,
Right.
if possible.
So, I mean, talking about gigs, I've heard from some other music friends that things are kind of tough out there to get gigs in this day and age.
It's been tough for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, a long time.
Mhm.
I'm from Edmonton originally, and I used to go back every summer. We used to go back every summer and visit my dad, and I got to know a lot of the pro players
Mhm.
at the blues jams and clubs and that when I was in Edmonton. And the last time I was there, we had this chat with a number of people. And in Edmonton, they think it's down almost 50%
Mhm.
in live venues and opportunities. And I've heard from friends in Vancouver basically the same thing. So I think it's at least Canada-wide, but probably worldwide. Maybe not in Europe. I don't know. I hear good things about Europe.
Yeah. I heard recently that, for instance, from some pals that play in the U.S. quite a bit, that the U.S. market is really good, whereas up here in Canada there's kind of a meh kind of attitude. Have you heard that from anybody?
The attitude from who?
Well, from the audience.
Oh, I think it depends what kind of music you're playing.
Yeah.
And teaching, I have lots of young students, and they bring what they like, the modern stuff that they like, and I know that the shows that those younger groups do attract a huge audience.
Right. Okay.
It's not my bag, but it's their bag, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to cut it off there, Don.
Okay.
Thanks so much for coming and chatting with us
Yeah,
today.
it was fun.
Yeah.
It was great.
All right. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Okay, so that's the end of this episode, and I'd like to thank Wayne Forseth and Don Peterson for joining us and talking about music. So please join us next time for our next episode of the Vancouver Island Business and Lifestyle Show. Thank you so much.